hiring you tends to have a higher productivity. If we have this kind of, if we have a talagang recruitment process natin is yung goal natin, there is a higher productivity. Okay, ang hiring decision ng isang kumpanya. So, if may I ask, of hiring the wrong people in an organization. Kasipe.
Yes, ma'am. Ano po yung tanong ulit, ma'am? Pasensya na po. Medyo Naglalag po kasi ako, ma'am. Pasensya na po.
Hiring wrong people in an organization. Ano yung magiging
Wait lang pa.
negative impact nito sa organization?
Hello po. Maari pong magkaroon po ng yung hindi po magandang, halimbawa po, nag-hire po ng maling personnel sa isang company. Minsan po kapag hindi po kagad na nakita yun sa umpisa pa lang, ma'am, magkakaroon po ng commotion sa mga co-employee.
Okay. So, how? Thank you, Miss Kasipe. Yes, o comment?
Ma'am, their performance is not related to the work. Like, parang hindi po sila magkakaroon ng magandang ambag sa company.
Okay. So, hindi nagmamatch yung uh, work performance itself. Hindi siya nagmamatch sa company. Yes, Regine. Any additional?
Tapos nagkamali po kayo ng na-hire na tao, if pwede po siya maging hindi po produktibo yung company nyo sa isang skills po na kaya niya talaga, tapos na-pwesto po siya sa skills ay sa trabaho na hindi niya po talaga kayang i-handle. So, magkakaroon din po tayo ng problema po, hindi lang po sa production, pati rin po sa company mismo, dun sa pakikisama ng taong yun.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Camposano.
Loss of productivity po. Kasi because if you are a bad hire, the employee can do their job effectively, as well as the person they replace. It means wasted time.
Okay. Okay, so wasted time. Yes, Cervantes.
Ma'am, if you hire the wrong person to your company, the company would not be able to grow and will not be more productive po.
Okay, so yung mga na-mention nyo, thank you, ay yun yung magiging negative impact sa organization, do sa company. Okay? So, if we're going to hire we're going to hire wrong people, we can have pwedeng magkaroon ng management or nagkakaroon ng hindi magandang impact sa management. Okay? Yung nagkakaroon tayo ng wastage sa valuable trainings, sa development. Okay? We keep on giving training sa mga employees natin. But then again, hindi hindi naman natin na-meet talaga yung skills na kailangan na ma-enhance sa kanila. Bakit kaya? Kasi those people na hinire natin, hindi na siya automatically nag-match yung skills niya dun sa hinahanap natin or dun sa position na dapat. So, methods, okay? Employment methods na pwede natin gamitin. The is giving test, battery of test. Okay? It's a systematic procedure for a sampling human behavior. Okay? So, ang ginagawa natin, we employ tests to match yung mga information that we have gathered. Isa profiling, we have this yung reference check. Okay? This is an additional way for us to confirm yung mga informations na nagather natin sa previous methods na ginamit or other methods that we have used in selecting employees. Okay? Now, how we're going to know or what are the characteristics of interview, yung pagtingin lang sa
Lagyan mo ng toyo.
resume reference lang siya solely, hindi lang tayo magre-rely solely sa mga techniques na
Mainit.
nagawa. So, identifying the candidates with the best person job fit requirements. Okay? We assess their capabilities, yung character, the alignment of their workplace culture using different kinds of tests. Okay? Now, we're going to see if the test is reliable or it has this factor of reliability. So it is the extent to which the score from a selection measures is stated. So reliability means that the selection method or the test results are consistent. This is a measure of consistency. Okay? Do not vary from with the time or the place or different subjects na ginagamit. Okay? So reliability is a measure of consistency with which a predictor continues to predict the performance with the same degree of success. Okay, so there are four ways to determine test reliability. So the most commonly used method of determining reliability is through the test retest method. Okay, so the same individuals are tested at two different points in time, and the correlation coefficient is computed are related to the scores on the second test. Okay? So the scores of from the first administration of the test are correlated with the scores do sa second um, pagbibigay o second administration of the test. Okay? So it would not make sense to measure the test reliability of the test design to measure it in a long time. Okay? Kapag siya yung masyadong yung wala naman kasing sinabi or there's no standard amount of time that should elapse between the first administration to the sa susunod. Okay? So, we have this temporal stability. So the test scores are stable across the time and not highly susceptible to such random daily conditions as illness, fatigue, stress, or uncomfortable testing conditions. Okay? So the test designed to measure test short-term moods or feelings. So, test reliability. The time interval between administrations usually ranges from 3 days to 3 months bago iniibigay yung second administration of the same test. Okay? Then we have the alternate form reliability. Saan? Paano ba ito ginagamit? So, deciding who to hire is full of uncertainty and risk. Napakahirap talagang gawin nito. Okay? So, this one, the alternative form reliability is the consistency of test result between two different but equivalent form of test. Okay? So, two forms of the same test are constructed. Pero, magkaiba ng itsura, magkaiba ng form. Okay? Alternate form reliability is used when it is necessary to have two forms at the same test. Okay? So, counterbalancing of test taking order is designed to eliminate any effects that taking one form of the test first may have a score on the second form. So the score on the two forms are then correlated to determine whether they are similar. The test is said to have form stability. So, meron siyang stable yung form na ginagamit nyo. Although sila mag-different forms, but then it is equivalent test. Okay? Why should anyone use this method? Bakit ba ginagamit pa to? If there is a high probability that people will take the test more than once, halimbawa for promotions, tapos everybody is given a chance to take the test, and then may mga bumagsak. Okay? So, ang gagawin, because we don't get this kind of na gusto nating makuha, kaya ang gagawin, test of test will be given, pero yun pa din, equivalent to the first test that you have used or that you have administered. Okay? So, yun yung kaya natin ginagamit. Bakit? Kasi nga, these two forms of test are needed to reduce the potential advantage to individuals who will take the test a second time. Okay? If you're given the same test, pwedeng meron ng familiarization. Okay? And internal reliability. So the consistency with which an applicant responds to items measuring a similar dimension or construct. So the longer the test, the higher its internal consistency. That is the agreement among responses to the various test items. Okay? So this is the third way to determine the reliability of the test. Or the inventory is to look at the consistency which an applicant respond to items measuring a similar dimension or constant.
Tingnan
Consistency
mo yung TV mo. Nag-record ako eh.
of research, yun yung inaano natin. So there are three methods used to determine. Then we have coefficient alpha and the which is the Kuder-Richardson formula 20. Okay? Included to sa inyong midterm. And I don't want to miss this o kaya maituro ko sa inyo yung module 6 kasi kasama to sa inyong last module kasi. Okay? Okay. So we have this split half method. So this is the easiest to use as I split into two groups. So usually, all the odds are pairs sa form 1 or sa set are lahat naman even numbers. Okay, kapag kayo ay nag-take ng comprehensive exam, usually the professors will make two sets. Okay, yung set A and set B. So, the first of the set A will be given to this group, and then the set B will be given on this other group. Then after that, pagpapalitin naman. So, ito yung para hindi, para maiwasan yung cheating. Okay? Okay, round prophecy to adjust the correlation. So it is a method. So we use this method used in evaluating test reliability. It is based on the idea that split half reliability has better assumption than coefficient alpha, but only estimates reliability for a half-length test. So you need to implement correction that steps it up to a true estimate for a full-length test. Okay? So, ito yung Spearman-Brown prophecy. Ginagamit natin yan. Pag kayo ay nasa statistics na, you will go further with that. Okay? Then, we have the Cronbach coefficient and the KR20. Ano yung difference and their similarities. So, more popular and accurate method of determining internal reliability. Although they are more complicated to use and thus are calculated by computer program rather than by hand. Okay? And the reality of coefficient but would be obtained from all possible combinations of split halves. Okay? Yung KR20 is used for tests containing dichotomous items. Okay? Yes or no, true or false. Okay? So this KR20 is a measure of reliability for a test with binary variables, yung right or wrong, yun nga yung true or false. Unlike yung coefficient alpha, ginagamit naman yan for multiple choice or dun sa mayroong mga distractors. Okay? Meron naman, we use this pagka sa dichotomous or sa coefficient alpha, ginagamit yan sa mga 5-point scales, 5-point rating scales. Yung ating, what do you call that? Yung um, Likert scale. Okay, yan yung ginagamit natin. Okay, scorer, reliability. Okay, so a test of inventory can have homogeneous items and yield heterogeneous scores and still not be reliable if the person scoring the test makes mistake. Kapag halimbawa nagkaroon ng na-mislook no no nung checker, okay, yung ibang items. So scorer reliability refers to the consistency of to the in which different people who score the same test agree. Halimbawa, di ba, sa mga contest like in, what do you call that, yung American, yung Pilipinas Got Talent. Okay? We have 3 ba or 4 judges there. Okay? So, para matest lang yung, magkakaroon, they have this scorer reliability or that is what we call inter-rater reliability, kung saan yung mga inter-observer, kung ano yung kanilang judgment, yun ang magiging reference ng pagkakaroon ng isang winner or ng isang employee or isang hired employee. Okay? So, dun nga, di ba, halimbawa, um, we have 4 judges. Okay? It's either you get 4 or you get 3 out of 4 para maging pumasa ka or you have that degree of para maging consistent. Okay? So that is scorer reliability. Evaluating the reliability of a test. Paano ba natin ginagawa yan? So it is important that scores on the test must be reliable. And there are 4 common methods for determining the reliability when deciding whether the test demonstrate sufficient reliability. Okay? Meron tayong dapat i-consider dyan. So, the reliability coefficient is a test can be obtained from your own data. So, you have to look at kung ano ba yung mga test na ginamit before. Okay? So, mga previous years, you have all the data and then ika-counter check nyo yun sa gagamitin yung test ngayon. If that test is nakita ninyo sa previous data ninyo or sa mga archives ninyo na very reliable to. Okay? Yun din ang gagamitin nyo ngayon. Pwede yun ang gamitin ninyo. Okay? Provided
Pa,
na yung mga
sige.
yung test na yun, ibabangga ninyo dun sa mga na-hire niya. Halimbawa, gumamit siya ng cognitive ability test. And then, dun sa mga na-hire, okay, using that test is nagpe-perform well. Okay? And then, tama. It is accurate. At maganda ang performance ng mga na-hire ninyo last year. Okay? Ibabangga nyo ngayon yun. Titingnan ninyo. If nag-match yung tamang test at tamang tao, that means it is reliable. Okay? So, the second factor to consider is the people who will be taking the test. And of course, you're going to give test, a battery of tests to the applicants. Dapat nagmamatch yun kung saan, kung ano ba yung hinahanap ninyo. Ano ba yung talagang gusto nyong ma-fill in na position. For example, you're looking for a manager. Okay, of course, you're going to give a cognitive ability test that will match or that will test the cognitive ability of a manager. Okay, hindi naman kayo magbibigay ng test na para sa rank and file. Okay? So, hindi nyo makikita, hindi nyo mame-measure yung tunay na ability niya. Okay? Huwag ka ganun kababa yung test na ibibigay nyo. You should take into consideration kung ano yung mga, kung ano ba yung mga aplikante na pagbibigyan nyo ng test. Okay? Then we have the validity. Okay. So this is the degree to which inches from scores on tests or assessments are justified by evidence. When we say reliability, di ba, yung results are consistent. Sa validity, results satisfy objectives. So yun gusto nyong makuha. So pagka valid siya, nakuha niya or talaga yung goal of the test, yung kung ano gusto niyang i-measure, yung talaga ang makukuha niya. Okay? So the potential validity of a test is limited by its reliability. So thus it is, if a test has poor reliability, it cannot have high validity. So reliability is indeed necessary but not sufficient relationship with validity. Okay? So there are 5 common strategies to investigate the validity of the scores on a test. Okay, so we have this content validity. This is the extent to which test item sample the content they are supposed to measure. Ano ba talaga yung gusto nyong makuha? So the appropriate content for a test or test battery is determined by the job analysis. Diba? Lagi tayong bumabalik dyan. All the job or all the recruitment activities or the HR activities, nagre-rely lagi yan sa job analysis. Okay? The job analysis should first determine the task and the condition under which they are performed. So this content validity measure how well the subject matter of a test relates to the capabilities and skills required by a certain job. So establishing a test content validity involves demonstrating the test items that will reflect kung ano ba yung knowledge and skills na nire-require nyo sa particular position. Okay? And then, one way to test the content validity of a test is to have subject matter experts. Yung mga SMEs natin, they will rate the test items on the extent to which the content and level of difficulty for each items are related to the job in question. So these SMEs should also be asked to indicate if there are important aspects of the job that are being tapped by test items. Also, the readability of the
Pa,
test is
Chichi,
good
oh,
example of how
maingay.
tricky content validity
Pa,
can can be. Okay? So suppose yung um, you want to determine kung gaano ka-importante yung isang trabaho. So you want to find if or you will find a that measure conscientiousness and we will you are confident that this test is content validity kasi nga ang mini-measure niya talaga is the consensus test. Okay? At ito ay in-identify ng mga SMEs sa job analysis na ginawa ninyo. Okay. We have criterion validity. The extent to which a test score is related to some measure of job performance. Criterion validity is established using one or two research design. So we have concurrent or predictive. So pag sinabi natin concurrent validity, it measures how well a new test compared to a well-established test. It can also refer to the practice of concurrent testing two groups at the same time or asking two different
Si
groups
Chichi, oh.
of people to take
Ano
the
ba?
same
Ano ba?
test. Okay? So, pagka concurrent validity design, it is a test is given to a group of employees who are already on the job. Okay? So, the scores on the test are then correlated with the measure of employees' current performance. Binibigay ito sa mga nandun na, sa mga empleyado na. Okay? Pag sinabi natin predictive validity design, so the test is administered to a group of job applicants who are going to be hired. Ito pa lang yung magiging applicant, or these are for the applicants pa lang. So the test scores are then compared with the future measure of job performance. Okay? So yung pagkakaiba nila, yung concurrent, yung nandun na sa mga empleyado na mismo ng mga ng organization, i-compare yon sa current performance. Sa predictive, i-hire pa lang, ibibigay ito sa mga applicant i-hire at i-compare naman to sa future measure of job performance. So that is criterion validity. So why is concurrent design
Nga
weaker
kayong
than
dalawa.
predictive?
Papa.
So applicant is
Aso.
hired, a wide range of both test scores
Laro pa
and
eh.
employee performance is likely to be found. And the wider the range of scores, the higher the validity coefficient. So employees who would be at the bottom of the performance scale, either ang ginagawa nila hindi na tinatanggap. Okay? So the answer lies on the homogeneity of performance scores. In a given employment situation, every very employees are at the extremes of performance scales. Meron tayong restricted
Ano ba?
range of performance. Scores makes obtaining a significant validity
Papa, si
coefficient
Chichi ang
more
harot.
difficult. So more concerning the criterion validity of test focus on the concept known as validity generalization. So dito yung VG na sinasabi. So this is the extent to which a test found valid for a job in is valid for the same job in a different location. So a technique related to validity, it refers to the demonstration that the validities of various selection devices generalize across different setting. Okay? So, ini-establish to typically yung mga ginagawa kasi natin. We use the meta-analysis para makita natin yung validity of this um, kind of design. Okay? So, what is the difference between validity generalization and synthetic validity? Sa validity generalization, we are the result of studies conducted ating synthetic validity, we're trying to generalize the result of the studies of different job to a job that shares a common component. Okay? So, yun yung pagkakaiba nila. Yung isa particular, the other one is general. Okay? Construct validity. So, this is the extent uh, measures validity, so it is used to determine by correlating test scores on the test with scores from the other tests. Some of the other tests measure the same construct, yung convergent, and the other is do not, which is the discriminant validity. Okay? So another method of measuring construct validity is known group validity. Okay? This method for measuring construct validity are make honesty test. Okay? And then you want to validate it. Your test and your items, i-validate niyo. Anong gagawin niyo? You're going to give it to the um, sa mga tao, sa mga employees. Okay? Then you're going to correlate your employees' test scores dun sa mga dishonest behavior nila before or nagawa nila. Halimbawa, stealing, lying, and so on. Okay? With the use of this known group validity, in order for you to validate your test na ginagawa mo, which is the honesty test, ibibigay mo to sa group of people na sa tingin mo ay gagawin nila or they have this specific characteristic na nagmamatch doon sa test mo. Halimbawa, yung honesty test. Ibibigay mo ngayon to, yung isang test na to know the validity, halimbawa doon sa sino-sino ba yung group of people na sa tingin nyo is hirap magsinungaling or hindi nagsisinungaling. Yung mga pastors, mga priests, mga madre, okay, ibibigay nyo yan. And the other, and then, you're going to give your test also dun sa mga, siguro sa mga vigilant, pwede sa um, mga criminals, okay? And then, you will administer the same test to both groups, okay? You will have to find out if the score of the priests are higher on the honesty test than dun sa mga convicts, okay? So does this mean our test is valid? Hindi ganon ka, hindi ganon, or it is not necessary na tama siya. Okay? But just simply using this known group validity. So it means that the test has known group validity but not necessarily all types of validity. Okay? So nabigay mo nga siya doon. Titignan mo if talagang hindi nagsisinungaling or hindi talaga or mas sinungaling ba or mas honest ba yung mga pastor, mga priest rather than these convicts. Okay? So even though known group validity usually is ginagamit, pero hindi niya nai-establish yung test validity. Okay? So, choosing a way to measure validity. So, it depends. Okay? It depends on the situation. Decide whether the test will be useful predictor of employee will usually be used. Okay? And the criterion validity study also will be conducted if there are enough employee. Kapag mas marami kayo, okay? Mas marami kayong itetest. So, when we speak of validity kasi, we are speaking about the validity of the test scores as they relate to a particular job. So a test may be valid predictor of tenure or pero hindi siya valid predictor para sa performance. Okay? So we can say that a test is valid if we mean that it is valid for a particular job and a particular criterion. Okay? So, yung cost efficiency. So, ito yung talagang issue lagi ito sa organization. Okay? So, if two or more tests have similar validities, then cost should be considered. Halimbawa, pareho naman silang valid. both reliable and then maganda yung nagiging result nila. Okay? Then we should consider yung cost. Kung ano pa, gaano ba or ang ia-allot nating budget para dyan. So, a particular test is usually designed to be administered either to individual applicants or to the group of applicants. Okay? Halimbawa, one reason for administering an individual intelligence test is to observe, okay, the way a person, kung paano nila sinosolve yung um, yung mathematical problems or yung questions. Okay? So you can see kung paano nila paano mo makikita kung paano nila sinosolve yon. Okay? So certainly, group testing is usually less expensive and more efficient than individual testing. Although important information may be lost in group testing. Okay, yun ang nagiging problema. So ngayon, in this time of pandemic, yung pagbibigay ng test is naging less expensive because we use computer-assisted testing, which is lower testing cost. Mas mababa siya. And then, yung decreased feedback time, at saka yung test takers have great confidence. Okay? And then, because of this computerized test na binibigay natin, nagiging safe din yung test takers as well as the administrators. Okay? This increase in efficiency, okay, yung kanyang validity hindi bumababa. Kasi, although we give or we administer the test electronically, same test din naman ang binibigay natin. Okay, so similar test and similar result will be gathered, okay, with this kind of, or with the test that we have administered. Okay? Walang pinagkaiba doon sa traditional paper and pencil format. Ang pagkakaiba lang, this one is electronically and less expensive. Yung cost niya is mas mababa and then the efficiency is same. Okay? Establishing the usefulness of selection device. So, we have this Taylor-Russell table. Even when a test is both reliable and valid, it is not necessarily useful at hindi lagi silang yun yung na dapat gamitin. Okay? So, dapat yung hinahanap. Okay? Kasi na-determine nyo naman yan dun sa job analysis ninyo. Okay? So, we have these Taylor Russell tables. These are designed to estimate the percentage of future employees who will be successful on the job if an organization uses a particular test. Okay? The philosophy behind the Taylor-Russell table is that a test will be useful to an organization if the test is valid. The organization can be selective in its hiring because it has more than applicants than openings. So, mas madami kasi. And there are plenty of current employees who are not performing well kapag hindi talaga yung ating mga empleyado. So, we use the Taylor-Russell table. So, this is design, this is to estimate the percentage of future employees who will be successful on the job if a particular selection method is being used. Okay? So we have this. There are 3 pieces of information must be obtained kapag po gagamitin natin yung Taylor-Russell tables. First is the Criterion Validity coefficient. So these are 2 ways to obtain this coefficient. The best would be to actually conduct the PT study with the test scores correlated with the same measure of job performance. On the basis of findings by researchers such as Smeeds and Hunter, we have a good idea of typical ability coefficient that will respond to various methods of selection. So the higher the validity coefficient, the greater the possibility that test will be useful. So your organization wants to know whether if the testing is useful before investing money. Kasi di ba ang hirap yung mag-aalat ka ng budget and then time and yet hindi niya talaga na-measure or hindi niya talaga na-reach yung objective. Yung result is hindi yung objective na gusto niyo makuha. Okay? So this is where the validity generalization comes into play. Yan yung kanina na pag-usapan, na-tackle natin. Okay, the second one is the selection ratio. Okay? Simply the percentage of people an organization must hire, and the ratio is determined by the formula. So we have that the selection ratio is equal to the number of hired candidates. You divide it to the total number of candidates. So that is the lower the selection ratio, the greater the potential usefulness of the test. Okay? So paano nyo yan makikita? So pagka mas yung na-hire ninyo is konti, halimbawa you have this 10 over 100, so you only have 0.1. Okay, napakababa. But then, pag ganun kababa, ibig sabihin, yung na ginamit ninyo is mas may potential siya na dapat na ginagamit. Okay? Next, we have the base rate current performance. So the percentage of employees concurrent on the job who are considered successful. So this figure is usually obtained in one of two ways. So we have the first method, it's the simplest but the least accurate. Okay? Employers are split into two equal groups based on their scores, on their criterion such as yung tenure nila or kanilang performance. So the base rate using this method is always 0.50 because one half of the employees are considered satisfactory. Then second and more meaningful method is to choose a criterion measure score above with all employees are considered successful. Okay? So how to establish the usefulness of a selection device. So we have this the Broden Cronbach Glasser utility formula. Ginagamit natin yan, okay, to determine the value of the test in a given situation. So, kinocompute natin yan yung amount of money in an organization kung paano masisave or how much yung masisave natin. So, an IO psychologists have devised a fairly simple utility formula to estimate the monetary savings of an organization. Okay? So, yun yung laging tinitignan ng management and as well as the HR personnel kung kung magkano yung masisave nila, okay, using the selection or the correct selection device. Okay? So we have to, in order for us to use this formula, we have 5 items of information na dapat yung mag-gather. So first is the number of employed hired per year. So that is our N. This number is easy to determine. It is simply the number of employees who are hired for a given position in a year. Then we have the average tenure. This is the average amount of time that employees in the position tend to stay with the company. So the number is computed by using information from company records to identify the time that each employee in and that position stayed with the company. Then we're going to sum, okay, the number of years of tenure for each employee is then summed and then divided by the total number of employees. Then you get the average tenure. Okay? Then we have the test validity. This figure is the criterion validity coefficient that was obtained through either a validity study or validity generalization. Okay? Then we have the standard deviation of performance. Paano kinukuha yan? Napakahirap kunin yan. But then again, okay, so, for for jobs in which performance is normally distributed, a good estimate of difference in performance between an average and a good worker, okay, is 40% of the employee's annual salary. So the 40% rule yields results similar to more complicated methods and is preferred by the manager. So to obtain this, the total salary of current employee in the position should be averaged, and we just get the 40%. Okay? So mean is standardized predictor score of selected applicants. So this number is obtained in one or two ways. So the first method is to obtain the average score on the selection test for both the applicants who are hired and the applicants who are not hired. So the average test scores of the non-hired applicants is subtracted from the average test scores of the hired applicants. So the difference is divided by the standard deviation of all the test scores. Tignan natin. So it's one example. So we administer a test of mental ability. We're going to get the mean, ha? Okay, so we have 100 applicants and then ang na-hire po ninyo ay 10 applicants. Course. So the average course of the hired applicants was 34.6. And yung mga natira na 90 applicants, they have 28.4. So the standard deviation of all test scores was 8.3. So the desired figure would be, ang mean natin is 0.747. Okay? Another one selection is to use the select conversion table for applicants hired and then the total number of applicants. For example, you have 10. You divide it by 100. You get 0.10. Then you tignan natin dito sa ating table. So we have the selection ratio of 0.10 and the select, yan po yung mean natin. If the standard selection or associate or the selection mean is 1.76. Okay, paano natin malalaman yung savings ng company? We're going to use this formula. So we have the savings, we have the N. Okay, the N is number of employees hired per year, and then the average tenure, which is the T, and then the R, which is the, what is this? The test validity. Okay? So, yan yung nakuha natin using either validity study or the validity generalization. And then, we're going to multiply it sa SD, which is the standard deviation of performance. And then, we have the mean. Okay? Mean standardized predictor score of selected applicants. Yung nakuha natin kanina. And then you're going to subtract the cost of testing and you multiply it to the number of applicants times the cost per applicants. So let's see. We have this we have this example. Okay? So an example is suppose we have auditors per year.